From Statesboro, Georgia, with Mood Lighting. It's another edition of Soccer Down Here. It's another week of Soccer Down Here on a Monday. John here, Jared there, and we're going to spend a lot of time on a lot of stuff, frankly, that happened over the weekend. We got championship games to discuss in Los Angeles, which was just nuts. And we also have a championship game in Statesboro. That's the reason I was here for the USL League One title game, and we'll get into that. More in hour number 2. Looks like we have some guests that hopefully got at least a nap in after a title win. So that's at 10:30, and we are also efforting Marion Crowder, who was on the sidelines last night for the USL League One title game that was on ESPN2. So, Jarrett, good morning. Busy championship weekend for all of us.
It was. It was a very busy championship weekend. And Shooter coming in just not like Shooter just opened the door blasting, like opened the door with the shotgun. November 5th is a national holiday. If you are in the New England area and you are not of the Philadelphia persuasion,
yes,
then yeah, it probably is, because it's the first time to my knowledge. And I've seen it repeated. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if it's confirmed. I don't know if anybody's confirmed it or not. It's the first time that its city has lost 2 titles on the same day.
Yes.
If you have a Philly fan that you care about, give him a hug.
Give him a call. Shoot him.
If you're a Shooter, then just keep firing off those mortar rounds into the distance.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I mean, it was oh, and Rich is in. Rich is in this morning. Oh, goodness.
Rich, I do feel for you, buddy. That's no one should have to. No one it's this thing where, like, you don't want anyone to ever have to go through that, because my God, and especially when you bring. We'll get into it, man. We'll get into the MLS side of it in a second, because the series of events that begins with, and then Maxime Crépeau shattered his leg in a way that Fox would not show you on replay.
No.
And Philadelphia got to play up a man through most of extra time, and then go up against the backup goalkeeper in the shootout. You figure, if I wrote that script for you, like, okay, like my odds here, like my chances.
Mm-hmm.
And no. And then lo and behold, a couple hours later, Jose Alvarado, for some reason, there was a sinker middle in.
Mm-hmm.
Yordan Alvarez, whose philosophy in life is, I'm going to swing as hard as I can. This ball's either going to go past me or it's going to leave the yard at about Mach 3.
Yeah, it's very Gary Sheffield.
It's very William Opeña.
Mm-hmm.
And Jesus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And and to Rich's point, Elliott was out of gas and was defending a player, hadn't played since September. Yeah, man. Look, Jack Elliott had a hellfire 20-minute stretch of real time in humanity.
Absolutely.
Because he puts away the goal that, when he scored it, that felt like it.
Yeah,
When he scores that goal in the second half stoppage time, that felt like it.
Mm-hmm.
And then
it wasn't.
It wasn't. Gareth Bale, who could be asked to get off the back nine long enough to jump over Jack Elliott, had a ball in. And first of all, it's a great cross. Like, it's that little, like, balls on the end line, gets his foot under it, backspins it, and just has this, like, floating evil cross. That ball that you love to see, where it's almost like this little chipped cross where the ball is backspinning so hard it's going to come down dry if it had been hit off the wet grass.
Yeah.
And Gareth Bale beats him to it. And then Elliott loses his foot on the PK.
I mean,
look, and here's the thing, man. Jack Elliott, I don't know how many people remember this, and Rich will know this. Jack Elliott was the best rookie in 2017 in this league, not named Julian Gressel.
yeah.
Like, if Julian Gressel had not lit it up with Atlanta United in 2017, Jack Elliott is your rookie of the year, and probably still had a case for it even then.
Mm-hmm.
It's been he's gotten better and better as he's played, and Jack Elliott's been good. I do feel for Jack Elliott because you go from hero to just that nightmare that quickly, dude. That sucks. That sucks for anyone because it was there, and then they're all out of gas. Everybody's out of gas in that game.
Yeah,
everyone's out of gas, and
you ask Gareth Bale if you're good enough for 25-30, and it was 25-30. It just so happened it was past the 90-minute mark when you got the 25-30. Mm-hmm. And Shooter with a point this morning. What a game overall. I had lots of eyes on it because of the extra time leading into the World Series. Win for MLS. Absolutely no doubt about it.
Absolutely. I feel like we really jumped into this game thanks to Shooter blasting the door off the hinges to start things.
Rundown.
Shooter just rolled in here with a sawed off.
Right, the rundown was right there, and Shooter comes in with a sawed off.
Shooter just like, if Philadelphia lost 2 championships in one day, Shooter came out the gate like Ultimate Warrior down the runway to the ring.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, we just jumped onto it halfway. Yeah, let's back up. I guess because.
Well, I mean, all right. So
set pieces, baby.
Yes, absolutely. And and Daniel Gazdag was the one who slipped. Thank you, Rich.
Oh, Gazdag. Sorry.
So I mean,
I thought it was Elliott. My fault, Rich.
You look at a match like this, and I'll just go ahead and post this to the floor. Where in the pantheon of MLS matches is this? Is this greatest ever? Probably greatest ever MLS Cup. But when it comes to pantheon of MLS matches itself, where does it rank?
It's the greatest MLS Cup. Let me remember. I wish Jason was here right now. Trying to remember what year it was. The DC Red Bulls playoff match.
Yeah.
Where Bill Hamid got sent off and just started live tweeting and slandering people from the locker room in the playoff game. Red Bulls, DC United playoff.
While you're doing a search, we do have a bit of breaking news. Inter Miami has signed manager Phil Neville to a contract extension, according to the organization. So breaking news this morning. Oh, and by the way,
good. He earned it. Phil Neville should have. Phil Neville should have been in that. He should have been higher in that conversation for manager of the year with what he did with that team. Because I know it goes to Jim Curtin. Ironically, I think Curtin should have won it the year he didn't win it.
Yeah.
I would have given it to Nancy this year for what he did in Montreal.
I would have too.
Phil Neville needed to be in that conversation because what he did was absolutely outstanding.
Chris Henderson, exec of the year, no question. We also know about the matchups in Champions League. Europa League is out. We'll get into that in a little while. Liverpool is apparently also up for sale this morning, according to David Ornstein. So Ornstein on Monday, Liverpool been put up for sale by Fenway Sports Group. The sale deck has been produced for interested parties. Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley are assisting in the evaluation process. Unclear if a deal gets done, but they're inviting offers. So, and we've also had a sacking, the 5th of the year in the Premier League. Ralph Hasenhüttl has been sacked by Southampton. And so Southampton looking for a new boss. It looks like first-team coach Ruben Sellis will take charge on an interim basis for the League Cup tie against Sheffield Wednesday in the Gummy Bear Cup. Nathan Jones, the boss of championship side Luton Town, is currently the favorite to take over at St. Mary's, which shows you Luton Town finished 6th, by the way, in the standings last season before heading into the playoffs, which, shows you one of two things. They're very, very analytical when they're looking for their new boss, or could be the budget that Southampton is having to work with. So,
by the way, it was the 2012 playoff game between Red Bulls and DC, which might be the most sickos playoff game we've seen, where they were sending offs. Like Rafa Marquez got sent off, Bill Hamid got sent off, and started like slander tweeting from the locker room.
Was there any? I don't think there was any repercussion from the slander tweeting, was there?
I don't think there was, but I mean, look, man, DC never got any repercussions when they tried to play an ineligible player against Atlanta in 2020. So who the hell knows?
Yeah, we're still waiting on that one. Yes.
Oh man.
Sean Vergara, who is in this morning, personifies pretty much the whole match. LAFC won as they normally do, chaos personified.
They set pieces, man. LAFC, especially up until late in the season, especially early in the season, LAFC will just wreck your life on set pieces. It was a fun little battle there because we know what Philadelphia can do. Remember, Philadelphia turned that game against New York City on its head by taking a very quick and attentive free kick while trailing to even the game up. New York City got knocked on their heels a bit before they knew it was 3-1 or 2-1. The third goal came later. But it's a weird one, man, because like Kellen Acosta gets one where that ball's probably still rising that he scores off of.
Yes.
He got all underneath that ball. It dropped his back shoulder, man. His back knee collapsed on the swing and everything. He got way the hell underneath his free kick, hits it off of somebody's head, and then it goes in. And Andre Blake is just sitting there wondering what happened in such a weird goal. Then Philly gets a set piece. Then LA gets a set piece.
Yes.
Philly gets another set piece literally like 2 minutes later.
Yes.
Man, those set piece moments for both of those teams, they are just so good at taking advantage of it. They both provide such consistently good delivery and consistently good movement off the ball to find space. And especially with Philadelphia, because it's not the same as Red Bulls, but they still do it really well where you get guys moving around screens where you're getting somebody free, and it's just this massive humanity, and you get an aggressive attacking player in that moment, be it a defender or an attacker, who is good at maneuvering around the bodies, and then somebody's trying to track them, and it's like trying to track somebody through a forest that is walking quickly.
Mm-hmm. And it's like one of those. It's like a horror movie with a chase scene in a forest, and you're trying to track somebody down, and you see all the quick cuts from the cameras and the editors and everything, and so it can go absolutely sideways. And full credit to, and by the way, if you haven't heard the play-by-play calls of the Gareth Bale goal from especially the Tuda NA feed, it was off the charts. Not that we would expect anything less, but absolutely tremendous. And if you are Major League Soccer, and this goes back to the original point that we had earlier this morning, that if this is the last match that you are going to have under your current TV contract, then this is the way to go out. You don't go out with a yawner. You don't go out with a blowout. You go out with something that was absolutely bananas for the last 60 minutes of play. And when Gareth Bale came in, how many of us, honest to God, raise your hands. How many of you, honest to God, sat there and went, "Yep, it's going to come down to a Bale moment"? Did you have that as part of your?
I literally wrote a tweet that was a pun about them getting bailed out. Yes, the answer is yes. He was going to have to do something because it either was going to come down to him making a run or him being that guy in the box, and he ended up being that guy in the box.
Yeah.
But look, that's what you got him for those moments.
Yeah.
That's why you get a guy like that. And however, machine parts they were able to do for the roster to make it work and for the cap to make that work. That's why you get a guy like that.
Yeah.
Because he can make those moments happen, because he can be in the right spot at the right moment. And that's what he gave you. And what he ended up giving you is a win.
Yes.
And he at least gave you an opportunity to win, I should say, at that point, because that point he doesn't lock it up for you, but he gets you to penalties. And it's so weird in that moment because it's a backup goalkeeper who is Philadelphia. Like you
Yes.
have a backup goalkeeper who is Philadelphia in his blood. And like he's not your starting goalkeeper in Philadelphia because you have Andre Blake, who is best goalkeeper in the league. It's one of those where it's like, why didn't we keep him? Because you have the best.
Because you have Andre Blake.
Yeah, and it's tough to keep two really good goalkeepers. He comes in and then proceeds to, get
but the thing is, John McCarthy he was brought in times past as a penalty save specialist. And sure enough, the product of LaSalle, the guy who grew up in Philly, played for Philly, gets moved over because, you've got Andre Blake. We're cool. And I mean, here's a guy who, and here's his rundown for his appearances and the places he's played. The Ocean City Nor'easters, Reading United, the Rochester Rhinos back in 2014, 21 games for Philadelphia Union, loaned back to Bethlehem Steel. And I think a lot of us remember him in 2019 with the Tampa Bay Rowdies going up against Atlanta United 2 back in 2019. Had 29 starts in the 2019 season. Then for 2 seasons in Inter Miami, started 21 matches. And then he had the one appearance for LAFC. That is the man's career. And so Rich says, Rich breaks down McCarthy. An expansion sacrifice. We may have lost the 2015 Open Cup final because of him. But I mean, if you're writing a story, I mean, this is like this is John Scott in the NHL All-Star game. You're getting the guy that you least expect brought in, and he goes right to the front of the line. Absolutely right to the front of the line when it comes to all of the stories. And I don't think you could, once again, when it comes to all the subplots and all of the things that we saw, I don't think that you could have scripted this in multiple directions any better. It was an LA script, no question, for an LA home game.
Yeah, it's a wild game. It's the best MLS Cup we've had. It's one of the best playoff games we've had. Again, we've only barely mentioned the fact that Maxime Crepeau gave up his right leg to save what probably would have been a game winner by Corey Burke.
Yeah.
And then proceeded to get sent off. And that's what opens the door for all this. Is Maxime Crepeau shatters his leg, and apparently it looks like they were FaceTiming him from the hospital or in the ambulance.
Yeah.
On the field after the game, because why not, man? That's what technology's for, right? Mm-hmm. Just get him loaded up on some between the shock of a broken limb like that and the medicine they'll give you. Yeah, he's fine. He's fine for the time being until they put him under to reset it. Speaking from experience.
Yes. Well, I mean,
depending on how bad the break is, they had to put me under to reset mine.
Yeah, no, I had, let's see, mine was. Do we know the extent of Crepeau? Because to me, it looked like
it was a leg break.
It looked like tib fib to me. It looked like both the tibia and the fibula.
It looked like there's the clip of the. God bless you, Fox, for not showing the replay live.
Yes.
And they even mentioned, we're not going to show it. And then everybody on Twitter's like, cool, well, we'll show it. SI Soccer, put that thing up as soon as they got it. Yeah. Because his leg is just hanging there like one of the puppets in the No Strings Attached, or the Bye 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 video, in the No Strings Attached in Sync album. You don't have to show that, guys. It's a broken leg. And because I think, because I was like, oh man, he might be really hurt. And as he's laying there and someone comes over and they're just holding his hand and he's looking at the sky, like, oh yeah, that's an underrated universal sign for something is really wrong when you're laying there and you're just having someone hold your hand, because there's nothing you can do. I just need you to hold my hand while I work through whatever is happening to my leg. I'm not going to look down.
Yeah. I mean, it was. I mean, it's yeah, and he's obviously the LA Times. Kevin Baxter came out and sustained a broken leg, is what Kevin Baxter is saying. In the collision, announced and underwent successful surgery to repair the fracture. Recovery from surgery obviously will keep him out of the World Cup in Qatar.
Yeah.
And then he goes into the detail of it, and then he goes into John McCarthy. Crépeau came to LAFC in exchange for $1 million in allocation money, career high in matches and starts, 33, shutouts 10, give up 36 goals, 15 caps for Canada, and recovery time for injuries that Crépeau sustained is about 4 to 6 months. So that is, I mean, it's when I had a fib fracture, they said that it was one of the most useless bones to break in your body, but you're in a cast for 8 weeks and then you have to rehab completely and totally. Yeah, David had the fib soccer break, can't watch it on TV, makes him wheezy 25 years later. Rough end to Crépeau's night. No doubt about it. And so,
yeah, tib fib is something that in like human 2.0, that's got to get nerfed, man. I mean, that injury is really annoying because it's like it's kind of useless, but when you do it, yeah, you're gonna be rehabbing for a while because he's not gonna be ready for the start of the season.
Yes, and that's going to be something that LA is going to have to. You know, you've got a guy, Ian McCarthy, who has started Major League Soccer down at Inter Miami over the last 2 seasons, meaning 20 and 21. Rich, McCarthy in goal hurts more than the Bale goal, as Rich continues with the Philadelphia point of view this morning, with all of the Philly overtones and LaSalle and the Union and all of that stuff, and McCarthy coming in and getting the Duke. Shiva's in this morning. Close match. Either team could have won it. Credit to both teams and coaches. LAFC had a home advantage, and it shows how important these home game advantages are in the playoffs. We have to get there next year, and you are not alone in that assessment, Shiva, without question. I know a lot of Atlanta United fans were looking at it, and Airborne DJ this morning. You sure hope he doesn't go the Alex Smith route. Exactly. You want a good recovery first and foremost, and then you want everything fine. All right. So Pilgrim with a question. We'll post it to the floor. And this is two shooter, but I'll mention it publicly here. So here's a genuine question: is it worth giving up the World Cup opportunity? Though I think Pilgrim, in that moment, you're not looking at the World Cup. You're looking right at that moment. If you're Maxime Crépeau, you're trying to get the win. And whatever else happens, and then the collision itself isn't something that's in your mind as you're trying to race to the ball ahead of Corey Burke. I think that you're sitting there and it's like, oh, okay, I have to make a decision. I'm stopping this from being 3-2 Philly at that point. And so I don't think he's necessarily looking at being Boyan's backup at that moment. I think he's looking at trying to preserve what we're looking at in a World Cup situation. So, yeah, I mean, that's legitimate. That's how I'm looking at it, is that you're looking at it that way. You're looking at preserving your activity there, as opposed to thinking about what's going to be happening in 3 weeks' time. I mean, Yeon-min Son is the same way. He's had to have surgery on an orbital bone. And so everybody's wondering whether or not he's going to be able to make it, and he's the talisman for his team. So, we'll see what the deal is. But no, I think that you're looking at it more in the current than you would be, Jared, if you're looking at something further down the line.
Yeah, I mean, but it's two different questions, because he's not thinking as he's running at Corey Burke, wow, what if I lose the World Cup because if I get this tackle? That's not in his head as he's doing that. He's thinking, ball, Corey Burke. Nope, not on my watch.
Yeah.
And it's a sacrifice you make in the moment, because no one's going into that thinking, I'm just going to shatter 2 bones in my leg and that's going to be my day. It's never part of the thought process, I don't think. I don't think you're thinking that far ahead. You're not like multi-step thinking about it like that. It does suck for him, though, because, look, I mean, Crépeau's young enough to be a part of that picture going forward. I think.
Yes. Yeah.
So it might not be his last shot at a World Cup. It like, for instance, it still bugs me. And it makes me feel bad for Brad Guzan that the United States missing the 2018 World Cup, like that was Brad Guzan's shot to be the guy in net. Because Tim Howard was clearly past it. It wasn't quite Zach Steffen time yet. It wasn't quite Matt Turner time had not arrived yet. Like, that was going to be his shot. That was going to be, at least from in my opinion at that point, because of where Tim Howard was as a professional goalkeeper, and especially what he showed you in Trinidad, that was going to be Brad Guzan o'clock.
Yes.
Unless he just, fumbled it away. So the good news is for Crepeau, I don't think this is his one shot. He wasn't going to start anyway, most likely. But hopefully he'll get another shot to go be part of a World Cup, because I think Canada's system is on the upswing for more than just one cycle.
Yeah. Pilgrim, I don't think it was ever on Crepeau's mind up until the moment after it happened, but it sucks, kind of like Miles. It's got to be a huge psychological blow to realize that 1 second changed your near future. And then a shooter comes in. The question is, in hindsight, would he do it again with a time machine? I think he absolutely would. I think he absolutely would do it over and over and over again because of the situation at hand. You're trying to win MLS Cup at that point, and that's what you're trying to decide. It's like, all right, I'm trying to preserve this, a chance to win for my team. I don't think you're thinking about Qatar at that point.
And to Bard's point, he's maybe number 3 behind Borgia and St. Clair. St. Clair's a loud one just because, man, I don't like. I feel like Minnesota's the last ones who figured out that St. Clair might be good. And we'll play him. Oh God, he's good. What do we do? Well, I guess we keep playing him then.
Yes.
Oh, no, that's just what they'll be expecting us to do. So I think he'll be part of that picture. Thankfully, I don't think this will be his only opportunity. So hopefully he does get another opportunity to play in the next World Cup, especially considering next one where it will be.
Yeah.
That would be very cool for him to be able to potentially play some games in Canada.
Yep. Emilio asking how long McCarthy's been with LAFC just this season, and with their struggles in that position, has he ever been considered starting material? I think that let me check his numbers in Miami, because I'm trying to remember the last 2 seasons with McCarthy in Miami and how many starts he may have had there. Fat Finger is also not helping out.
But he's in that conversation of guys like Alec Can was, or Zach McMath was. Zach McMath was in that conversation for a decade, it felt like.
Yeah.
Of guys who they're not a number 1 where they're at, and everyone is convinced they're going to be a number 1 wherever they go. That, like, okay, they just need the right opportunity. They should be a number 1 somewhere else. And sometimes they get that opportunity, and it doesn't stick the first time. Like Zach McMath, I forget where he went after Colorado, but he didn't stick.
Yeah.
And now I think he went somewhere before RSL, didn't he?
Efforting. So
I may be wrong, but he didn't just go and immediately start at RSL. Now he is in a really good year for RSL. It's never or it's not always, I should say, a straight line of, this guy might be starter quality. We need to get him somewhere where he might be starter quality.
Philly, Colorado, careful.
Yeah, I thought he was in Vancouver.
Yeah. Vancouver in 2019, 2011 to 15, Philadelphia Union, 2016 through 18, Colorado, cup of coffee in Vancouver, then to RSL.
Yeah. So he gets his shot finally. Alec Can took his opportunity this year when he left Atlanta. And then he got Wally pipped in the process in Cincinnati.
Yes.
It's there's always going to be guys like that, and I'm sure I don't know who's going to be the next goalkeeper who's like that. I'm actually not sure. It might be Alec Can all over again. Because because Alec also suffered from a Cincinnati team that decided that defending was a theoretical concept at the beginning of the season.
It's something on paper, not necessarily something that you're.
Yeah, because remember, there's like 2 games in the beginning of the season where he gives up like 5 goals. Some of it was his fault. Some of it was him being absolutely hung out to dry by his defense. A concept people around here should be familiar with if you watch the twos this year, because while Atlanta 2 gave up a ton of goals, not all those were on Justin Garces and Vicente Reyes.
Yeah.
Some of that was on, hey, we're going to play really aggressive and leave our guys, 1v1 at the back. And sometimes they're going to lose to adults because they're 17 years old. But I'm wondering if Alec Can just becomes that guy again where, okay, now we got to get Cam somewhere else to see if he can be that guy.
Yep. Bart is in with a couple of quick points. He says, saying Alec Can isn't a number 1 will make you an evil human. And and then
I like Alec Can. I do.
Absolutely.
I really like Alec. He's a good dude too. He's always super nice, very thoughtful guy. Like very smart player, but at least from my experience. But like, I feel like he's just been handed these really weird situations. Like he came here. He started half the season. Brad Guzan comes in. Brad Guzan's your 1, which hey, that worked out as Brad's working his way back from injury. Because the one moment I will always go back to is Brad Guzan saving Jeremy Ebobisse in MLS Cup. That made it worth everything.
Absolutely.
Saving Ebobisse at point blank range and preserving a 1-0 lead right before the half. Like, Can takes the money, goes to Cincinnati to be a starter, and gets Wally pipped.
Yeah, like Celentano's been the man in Cincinnati.
And for me, it wasn't even like by that point, like it wasn't even like Can like played his way out of it. More so that Celentano played his way into it.
Yeah. Bart says, for the record, Borjan is 32, Crépeau is 26, St. Clair is 23. So the younger 2 will absolutely be key figures for Canada in the next cycle. And
it might be so like Bart's opening up a can we can get into. And we would need more Canadian-focused people on this, probably. But like that's an interesting situation for next time because he'll be 30. St. Clair will be 27.
Yep,
depending on when birthdays fall.
Yeah,
like
Borjan would be 36.
Yeah, 36. Like he might be on the back end of it. Like, which one of those guys is the guy? How does Crépeau react to the rehab with this? Hey, you broke bones in your leg. Okay, cool. I don't use my leg, right? Well, actually, you play goalkeeper and you push off of it pretty much constantly.
Yes.
Like quick twitch, push off of it. So we should probably stabilize that. Yes, he still did save him Moreno PK.
Yes.
Pilgrim, you are correct.
Yes,
the best Alec Can performance of 2022 came against Atlanta United.
Irony.
Because of course it did.
Yeah.
Because just like how, what was Kenneth Vermeer? Just like Kenneth Vermeer in 2021.
Yes.
Kenneth Vermeer was, for my money, the worst goalkeeper in this league last year.
Yeah, I mean that's
was actively stealing money from Cincinnati. And then he just went Super Saiyan for 15 or 20. Yes, he did. From LA first. Because remember, at one point, I think FIFA had him as like the top rated goalkeeper in MLS.
Yeah.
Because FIFA ratings are real things that should always be taken seriously.
Yes.
He went Super Saiyan for about 15 or 20 minutes against Atlanta United in 2021. And then really didn't do it again for the rest of the season. Like that was his most useful. That was for his most useful moment. So, yeah, let's run this analogy all out for anybody who grew up watching DBZ. That was his Yashirobe, I'm going to cut the tail off of the Saiyan moment. That was his, I'm going to be useful for 15 seconds. The rest of the time, I'm just here. That was his moment.
Yeah, see now, even I would need an explanation of that.
Don't worry about it.
Thank you.
Move on. It's okay.
Rich, once again, McCarthy being third on the Union GK depth chart prevented a young Zach Steffen in the Union Academy from moving up, and instead he went to Columbus. And Cloud Wreck with a thought here. McCarthy may start a movement. Teams creating GK specialists, and I think that this is a good question for Jess when we have Jess on the show. Teams creating GK specialists that are really good at PK shootouts, but nothing else. Put them on your bench during playoff games that may go to shootouts. What do you think?
Who was it who did this in Europe?
It was
Chelsea who did this.
Well, I also know that I think Newcastle.
Chelsea did this with Mendy.
Yeah, and Newcastle and Norwich did it with Tim Krul. Because Tim Krul was regarded as that same kind of a specialist who was better at PKs, perhaps, if he was the number 2 keeper in the system than he would be.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Chelsea did this where they had Mendy and then they benched him, and then the guy they brought in, I forget who they brought in. Not only did not win them the shootout, but literally the shootout I think went 10 or 11 kicks, and he did not save a single kick, and then missed his kick.
Yeah.
So it can backfire. And yeah, this would be absolutely a conversation for Jess and other goalkeepers, because it's this weird thing. Some people are really good at saving penalties, and some people are not at all.
No, that is accurate.
And some of it is psychological, some of it is physical. How do you react? How do you read things? That sort of thing. I'm sure luck does play a role in part of it. For instance, there's the part that Tim Melia is nothing short of a mental terrorist, because I know Tim Melia's the sun is setting on his career real quick in Kansas City. Tim Melia spent a long time tormenting people from the spot.
Yes.
Including in the playoffs. Last time Kansas City got in the playoffs in a shootout, they got to the shootout and Tim Melia walked up and had the look, and it was that same look that Kobe Bryant would give you of he just walked in and was like, oh, this is over. We won. Don't worry about it. We got this. You guys just make your kicks. I'll take care of the rest. And then he did.
And Howie's saying that Van Hall did it as well when it comes to his keeper situation.
Yeah, I mean, some people just do it because some keepers are better at it than others. Right. Some are really good at making hey, we're going to put this guy in because he's just going to read it better.
Yeah.
He knows the tendencies. He's researched the tendencies. He can read them in the moment. The moment doesn't bother him because everybody is built differently, emotionally, mentally, physically. And if you got somebody like that, great. And if you can have somebody who can be that guy and be your starter, even better. But yeah, I mean, it's especially when you started allowing, it's an interesting thing because you started allowing the extra sub when you went to additional extra time.
Yeah. And so for the record, speaking of World Cup rosters, are we expecting any surprises on Wednesday? We will hold this question. We will hold this question and put everybody's thinking caps on. And
I got one for Bart then, if we want to start getting into that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we also probably should have Bart on at some point, either on Wednesday or Thursday. So Bart, you're on notice. With your golden ticket.
Because you have the news that Sam Vines is hurt. Did we not prep another outside back for this contingency? Because I saw people saying what about George Bell? I'm like, man, I don't know if y'all paid attention to Armenia Bielefeld.
Yeah.
It's probably not the right time. This probably is not the right time for a George Bello call up.
No.
George Bello has George Bello has been having a time of it in Germany. That has not gone the way that George Bello envisioned it going.
Yeah, no, it has not, and so we'll keep an eye on that. So Bart,
Christian Roldan's going to be there just because Bart he's going to be there. Roldan is going to be on there because you are required to provide a manifesto. And that is the easiest of low-hanging fruit for said manifesto. So just go ahead and make peace with your dear and fluffy Lord that he will be there.
Yes. Well, I mean, if you have a relationship with 3GB and he likes you, he really, really likes you, then that means that you will be a part of the roster.
Okay, he says it's Joe Scally. I completely forgot about Joe Scally.
Okay.
And that's the perfect shout. Okay, cool. That's why I wanted to ask Bart because I didn't remember Joe Scally. Yeah, it's not going to be. I hate it for Vines because it'd have been an interesting curveball to throw into hey kid, come on up to a World Cup. Never know if you'll get another shot at that, but I hate it for him because now that's out the window, even as an alternate kind of guy.
And burned to our George Bello discussion. Bello hasn't seen the field nor even 5 minutes at the end of matches after their 6-0 loss to Stuttgart in the German Cup. So that should tell you everything when it comes to George Bello right now.
Yep, he has been very bad.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so 40 minutes into the show, I'm going to do the opening kickoff, brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com. And let me see if I can find it here because things started sliding when I wanted to plug them in this morning. So there you go. There's your QR code. Once again, click on the QR code, and that'll get you started with everything Kickoff Coffee. Thanks to everybody who has been investing and starting your day with Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com. Kickoff Coffee on Twitter, on Facebook, and on Instagram. So there's your QR code. Use the code SoccerDownHere15. Thanks to everybody who has been using the code SoccerDownHere15 to get your 15% off of your purchases, because Kickoff Coffee then in turn takes 10% and rolls it over into the youth game. Very, very cool stuff from our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. So comment came in just a couple of seconds ago from Pilgrim. And Jared, I wanted to get you to discuss this because of how this match kind of had a life of its own, and you kind of added folks to the discussion that hadn't previously been privy to the madness that can be soccer sometimes. Pilgrim, I missed the beginning. Did we mention the Racing-Boca match? So I figured I would bring that.
No, but I guess we will right now.
That is correct. That's why the opening kickoff is 40 minutes into the show. Go for it.
I mean, so if y'all missed it, Racing and Boca played a soccer game, attempted to play a soccer game the other night. Attempted. And then in the midst of all that, attempted to challenge Clapolet's record for red cards in a single game. They failed because I don't think anyone's going to top the 36 red cards that Clapolet picked up in a 2011 game.
Yeah.
But they did put in an effort. It's just like you go look at the timeline for the second half of the game, and it's just red card, yellow card, red card, sub, red card, double yellow. Man, look, Argentina, not even once. Just don't. It's not healthy. No one benefits. Your family suffers. You suffer. Society suffers as a whole. Man, I love that stupid league.
Well, and you've got the Sickos Committee intrigue.
Well, yeah, it's because the Sickos Committee got involved, and then I told them, I mentioned to the Sickos Committee, like, look, because we already have a Sickos Committee subcommittee for basketball. Mm-hmm. The college basketball has its own Sickos subcommittee. I told them, if you're going to get involved in Argentina, we're going to need to discuss the Sickos having basically a subcommittee for Argentina itself. You cannot do the Sickos and cover Argentina soccer without giving it its own subcommittee. It just kind of has to happen.
So Jarrett has brought the Sickos Committee into Argentine football, and the Racing match was completely and totally sideways, and even more sideways than normal sideways. So I don't even know what the next step of sideways is.
Well, to be fair, I didn't bring them into this game. They're the ones that saw someone on the committee saw the game. Mm-hmm. And then, brought it up, and I was like, oh, well, we're going to need, it's a pretty substantial development. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, in Argentina, they're not going to flinch at that as much as we are. They're just going to be like, oh, y'all had a spirited debate, I see.
Yes. Rich goes, yeah, the match ending was nuts. It got explained to Rich that it sounded like an unwritten rules violation. So, so if you can find a cut down, if you can find highlights of said match on the YouTubes, recommended just to see all the madness and hysteria. So we're always a fan of madness and hysteria as long as folks don't get hurt. So that is your opening kickoff, brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com. And once again, use the code SoccerDownHere15 to get 15% off of your purchase. And they, in turn, take 10% and reinvest it into the youth game at kickoffcoffeeco.com, kickoffcoffeeco on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram, as I completely and totally throw like 9 things up on the screen at once.
And so, since Emilio brings this up, I would defer to Byrne to add to this conversation piece about Bello. Is he as good as we thought he was? And I would defer to Byrne on this one because Byrne knows Germany better than we do, better than I do at least. And because it seems like he wanted to go there.
Yeah.
That was what he wanted to do.
Advised to go to Bruges, I believe, and then he wanted to go to Bielefeld.
So they made it happen. They got him to Bielefeld. The manager who brings him in is fired shortly thereafter.
Yep.
Doesn't really fit with the new manager. Team is not good. Like, they got relegated, and they're not. They didn't get relegated and hit the ground running either. Mm-hmm. They got relegated, and it turns out the bedrock wasn't the bedrock. There was something below the bedrock, and they're going to find it.
Yes. And just for the sake of digging, I'm going to see where Bielefeld is right now, and probably Byrne can come up with the information faster than I can. Bielefeld is actually playing at Paderborn tomorrow. No juice boxes for the moment, but wow, Bielefeld's last in Bundesliga B. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
3 matches.
He has not been a bright spot either. Like, it's not like, oh, they've been bad, but like, this isn't like Ted Lasso where, like, man, they're struggling, but we got one guy who's killing it. Like, you don't even have that right now with them.
No, I mean,
yeah, life came at him fast. That sucks.
Yeah,
and so I don't know if he just needs to reset somewhere else or what, but yeah, I don't because it felt like George Bello showed you stuff here where you thought, man, like, there's something that can be molded there into being a really dangerous player.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe Bielefeld wasn't, the move he needed to make, I guess, which I guess is kind of understating the obvious.
Yeah.
But it's been a messy situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Bielefeld's only got 3 wins in their first 15 matches. They are 4 points adrift from Nuremberg and St. Pauli, who are in the 2 spots above them in the relegation zone. And remember the crossover playoff elements and things like that. So, I mean, right now, you could be, you get relegated again, back-to-back seasons. You would be in the Bundesliga 3 Liga next year. I mean,
that's bad.
That is horrendous. So that is absolutely horrendous. News out of Leipzig this morning. It was put in the timeline. Timo Werner, successful surgery following the syndesmosis ligament injury. So speedy recovery, Timo, is what the team is saying. RB Leipzig on their Twitters as of just under an hour ago. So Bernd is saying Bello hasn't played. A 33-year-old journeyman from Schalke, Okshipka, has taken his spot. Wow. We have a successful return. Modaflow is back. Modaflow has returned to the stack. So welcome back, Modaflow. It's been far too long since you've been away from our discussions. So, that's where things are right now. Let's see. And so, yes, Bart, our people will talk to your people and pick the day. So probably the day after the discussion. So it might be on the Thursday Power Hour when you pop in at 9:30, and we'll discuss things there. So welcome back, Modaflow. Anything else before you wander off into the real world, sir?
Yeah. We have the trade window opens up today at noon.
That is true.
The 24-hour the trade window extravaganza will not be doing a live show like in years past, where it's like the 3-hour trade window extravaganza. They've expanded it out because they don't want us to have our beautiful trade window extravaganza. We'll still figure out something.
That's un-American.
Man, they just don't love us to be happy. But you have that coming up. Options for player exercises are November 14th. Opening free agency is November 16th. Super Draft is December 21st. We celebrate the arrival of Old Man Winter with an expansion draft, or with a draft. So why not? A Super Draft. So why not? Atlanta, remember that Atlanta is exempt from the expansion draft this year, but do not let the fact that Atlanta is exempt from the expansion draft distract you from the fact that it's still high-grade bullshit that teams only get $50,000 if they lose a player in the expansion draft. Remember, Garber, You wanted teams to build better, deeper squads with better, deeper players and more talent across the board. You better start giving them more than $50,000 when they lose one of those deep players.
Yes.
So Atlanta's not going to be a part of that this year, but somebody's going to lose a player that's worth more than $50,000, and they're only going to get $50,000 and a pat on the back for it. So fix the damn problem.
And a thumbs up. Here's 50 grand and a thumbs or 2 thumbs up. So yeah, fix it in addition to everything else, in addition to the salary cap and the 4th DP. So we didn't have any of those other incidents. All right, well, you will be back with us tomorrow morning, yeah?
That's the plan.
All right, so we'll discuss what's going on with trade windows and all that kind of stuff with Jared as he wanders off into the real world on a Monday. And for the next couple of minutes before we bring in our guests to promote what happened here in Statesboro last night on USL League One, the last game of the year. Let me see if I can in short order. And of course, when you want to try to do something quickly, that's when it never happens quickly. So let's take a peek at the draw when it comes to the Champions League and Europa League stuff. We'll get into that. Provided. All right. So here's your matchups for those of you that missed it. Champions League draw. So here we go. Round of 16. You got RB Leipzig, Manchester City, Brugge, and Benfica. Liverpool, Real Madrid. That's spicy. AC Milan and Tottenham. Bit of an irony alert there. Eintracht Frankfurt, Napoli, Borussia Dortmund, Chelsea, Inter Milan, Porto, PSG, and Bayern. Last 16 begin in February. First leg matches concludes with the second leg fixtures in mid-March. Seeded teams listed second in their respective matchups above play away from home in the first leg game after winning in their groups. Match schedule for the round of 16 revealed at a later date. Knockout stage will once again be played without the away goals rule, which UEFA abolished in 2021. Any tie level after 180 minutes will go to extra time, potentially penalties, regardless of how many goals each team scored away from home. So the second legs go to your group winners: Man City, Benfica, Real Madrid, Spurs, Napoli, Chelsea, Porto, and Bayern Munich. So that's your Champions League. And let's see if we can find the Europa League, because I am 2 computers down since I'm on the road as opposed to being at home and in the home office. So let's see if we can get Europa done quickly here before the cavalcade of guests. Europa League draw. Nothing like hitting search engines. All right, so February 16th, it's RB Salzburg and Roma, Sevilla PSV, Sporting and Midtjylland, Barcelona Manchester United. That's the one that everybody was staring at this morning. Ajax and Union Berlin, Juve and Nantes, Shakhtar Donetsk and Rennes, Leverkusen and Monaco, and then that turns around on the 23rd. So it's February 16, 2023, February 23 of 2023, and then it's the reverse fixtures there. So that's your Europa League matches set for the middle of February and the end of February. But yeah, the couple of spicy ones in there that you're looking at as we work our way forward here in the world of soccer on a Monday. It's been fun to blow through the MLS Cup and everything that has been happening there, and all the news with the sacking, the kicking the tires on a possible sale of Liverpool, and keeping an eye on all that stuff. But before we get into hour number 2, let me cut the promo really quick with our friends at Eliminize Service. Eliminize Service for odor-free, clean, fresh air. One place you need to go, and it is our friends at Eliminize. And it is a proven scientific formula that gets rid of everything all the way down to the molecule. Any questions that you may have about it, it's different than a masking agent, because when you have that masking agent that's either under the sink or above you in the cupboard, when you reach under the sink or above you in the cupboard, you spray the masking agent in the air. That's why they call it a masking agent, because all it does is mask the odor. It does not attack the issue all the way down to the molecule like our friends do at Eliminize with their proven scientific formula. And it is a very, very green way of going about things. It's a turnkey method involving realtors and property managers, so that way they can dive in and they can help that process along too. But since I do not have the billboard off to my left shoulder, as you're looking at screen right, my left, That's where I grabbed the pen. ELIMINIZE.com. But do us a favor here at SDH. After the .com, go /Atlanta so they know what part of the world that you are addressing them from. ELIMINIZE.com/Atlanta, lemonize.com/Atlanta for odor-free, clean, fresh air. Lemonize Service, proud sponsors of everything SDH. And once again, very, very busy morning here in soccer. To recap things kind of quickly, we just went over Europa League and Champions League matchups. Liverpool looks like they're kicking the tires on a sale. They have recruited 2 heavyweights to kind of analyze possibilities when it comes to a sale price. Numbers floated around right now are looking $3.5–4 billion with a B. With the currency rates being what they are, it would have valued itself out to $4.4 billion only a couple of weeks ago. But it looks like $3.5–4 billion might be what you're looking at as we go. And when you hear that magical noise, when you hear that little pop, that means that we have someone in the green room, and we're going to move them from the green room and bring them actually into the discussion. Marion Crowder, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. From Statesboro.
Yes, I'm in Statesboro, and you're still in Pooler. So
Pooler, yes.
So
very difference.
I mean, so let me ask you this. And Marion Crowder, for those that didn't get the chance to watch on ESPN2 last night, Marion got to wander the sidelines and kind of listen to what Jimmy Weekly was talking about, what Ian Cameron was yelling about when it came to Chattanooga Red Bulls and South Georgia Tormenta. Have you recovered from last night?
Yeah. Honestly, I feel like, because, you and I were talking, and like in full transparency, that was one of like my first real sideline gigs. And it was in my comfort level, right, of soccer, the domain I'm used to. And it was kind of like after the game, everything, I was just like, oh, wow, I have like so much to reflect on. Haven't gotten to that point yet. But it was so cool seeing, I made it a point to stick around because I know you guys, right? Like I know Darin because of working for Greenville and his relationship with Joe. And so I was just making my rounds. And then I was looking at all of the players and I was just like, this is just the coolest thing. Like, look how happy they are that they just brought a championship to the small little community of Statesboro. It was seriously just the coolest like moments, like look back on not working for a team, not working for the league, just like truly as a bystander, just somebody that got to enjoy the game, got an opportunity to cover the game, and then just to see all that, it was just the coolest thing.
What's it been like for you to see the league grow the way that it has? Because, I mean, we knew the rivalries going in, the Southeastern footprint has always been there. What's it been like for you to see the league grow to where you have a championship game on ESPN2, you have all of the pomp and circumstance and attention that's attached to it? What's it been like for you to see this?
Yeah, it's been really cool because I feel like I can come at this a couple different ways. Like for me personally, there are definitely some cool like full circle moments. Last night was definitely one of them. I was telling you before the game that I was a graduate assistant in Georgia, left to get more reps on camera, get more in like the media world. Greenville gave me that opportunity. Ended up meeting so many cool League One people, but all the people I met at Georgia started calling me to do SEC Network stuff. Left Greenville because I needed my weekends free to come back and do that. And then all of the connections that I made from working with League One all came full circle last night. So that was a personal kind of like, wow, the growth that has happened. But for the league itself, that was the first 3-4 matchup that we've had. It's the first time Greenville has never been in the final. And I think everybody leading into that absolutely thought there's no way Richmond's not going to host this. And then all of a sudden, 2 things that no one thought were going to happen. Statesboro, Georgia host the final in a brand new stadium. I think that was the other big thing. It was weird, like, 3-4. Okay. Like, does it feel weird that Greenville or Richmond aren't in the final when everybody thought? A little bit, but at the same point, I think the boys said it on the broadcast yesterday, those were the 2 hottest teams in the league at that point. So it were the teams that were in the best form. And then I even, got to do a lot of research about the fact that they're the 2 soccer specific stadiums, the 2 clubs with soccer specific stadiums. Yep. And so to see, in my mind, honestly, I feel like that is one of the biggest ways a community can say, hey, we're invested in you, and what you're bringing to us is to build them their own place, their own home. And getting to talk with a lot of the Tormenta guys specifically, since they were the host, asking them just, hey, what's it been like going from playing at the Georgia Southern, right? A shared facility basically, to having, your own banners when you come into the clubhouse. And they seriously said, they were like, it's just different. Like it truly is seeing the game from a different angle, and the energy that the fans give us. They were great, obviously, always, but it's just such a different environment knowing that they are there, not because they stumbled upon us, because they know where the Georgia Southern field is, but truly like they sought out coming to watch us play. So the stadium piece has been huge, I think, for USL, and will continue to do so as more teams look to go that route. And then just the overall media coverage. Like, when would you ever have thought in 2019, when this all started, that the final was going to be on ESPN2?
Yeah.
Like, pretty crazy. And then, they have so much stuff coming in the pipe. That was the first double. So Tormenta won the USL Women's League, and then they get the men's championship. So that was a huge growth moment, I feel like, for the league in its entirety, to be able to say that that's even a possibility for clubs to now have a double championship. That's just another angle to it.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the soccer-specific facilities. You've got Chattanooga, you've got Tormenta, you've got Spokane coming online, you've got Lexington coming online that wants to have that downtown facility that's a part of all of this. And you mentioned the double too.
Yeah,
and we're going to have Darin van Tassell on after you at 10:30. And
good for all the viewers.
No, well, I mean, it's
like, if you made it through Marion, don't worry, you get Darin.
I mean, you think about what Statesboro has done and what the Van Tassells have done to invest to this point, and it isn't just the League One team. It's USLW, it's USLA, it's USL. I mean, you have everything from 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old kids that can work their way up through a system, and everything that Darin has been wanting to do with this footprint where they're the spoke in the wheel here geographically for everything that goes on. I-16 West heading toward Macon, I-16 East heading towards Savannah and into the low country of South Carolina, North heading toward Augusta, South heading toward Vidalia, where Vidalia soccer has had, they chased after high school championships on the women's side, right? They can make such an impact by being the center of the wheel here, and it's rubbing off on all these different areas. It's just been really cool to see the progression of it all.
Yeah, and I feel like you could think from an outsider looking in that it's like, okay, well, you have a different staff that's running the academy, you have a different staff that's swimming the women's league. Are they all really close? And it's like, okay, actually, that's not true. Like the same staff right now for Tormenta specifically, and for a lot of clubs across USL League One, they are running also the women's league, right? So you have the cross functionality of the staffs getting into the growth of soccer from the front office perspective. But then last night, you hear, you're like, yeah, we're close. Yeah, we see them in training talking about the Tormenta FC2 guys, talking about the women's league. We were asking, what would it mean for you guys to win a double? And it's like, what answer are you going to get? Because how close are they really? But last night, you had women's league players that were out there celebrating with the first team guys. You had the academy group. I got a great picture, I think, of some of the academy boys celebrating with Keziah, who won MVP. And it truly, in my mind, that was the physical moment where you could actually see the fact that this first team, what Darin and these guys are doing down here at Tormenta, it is crossing over, and there is a true camaraderie across the women's team, across the academy team, with the Tormenta FC2 guys. It is truly an investment, and it's not like the first team guys are sitting there looking at everything else, all the other different angles that the growth is happening, and saying, no, I'm just going to be over here, I'm going to do my own thing. They have bought in. You can tell that these guys have bought in.
For those of us that have been able to watch what's going on in here in Statesboro, the best analogy that I can come up with is that every league needs a Green Bay. And what I mean by that is, but what I mean by that is, it's not the biggest town, but the success is there with the franchise, And you're seeing the family atmosphere and just the fever and the attention that it draws, not just within the franchise itself and all of its different places, but the fans. The fans are hardcore. And I mean, that place was packed last night, over 3,000 folks. And I got to give credit to Chattanooga because they traveled as well. And they had their own march. They had their own march on Old Register, and they were working their way around the fence line coming all the way down. But I think that every league needs a Green Bay. And I think that right now, as you look at soccer, the smallest market in USL Championship, League One, et cetera, is the one that has the title. It's the one that has the double. So I think that it's key that, it's fantastic, all the growth in the larger markets and everything, especially USL Championship and League One and what have you, but you've got to have those Green Bays that make just as much of an impact.
I agree. And it kind of, we went to training on Saturday, and I was just, introducing myself, making sure that I was like, hey, if you score, like, I'm coming to scream at you, right? Like, I was just making sure they weren't scared of my approach, basically. But we got to have a lot of cool conversations. And Josh Phelps, they call him Phelpsy. He and I talked for a while just about, because, he was one of the first guys that the club signed. He's been with Tormenta since 2019. And I was kind of just wanting to see, they had so many midseason transactions this year that I felt like I was talking to a lot of newcomers, and there were really only like a handful of guys that have seen this club from start to final. And so I was talking with Phelpsy, and I was just like, hey, what, in your perspective, you've seen this from 2019 to now, like, what are your feelings about being in the final for the very first time? And he actually told me, he was like, honestly, it's a little bit of a relief that this has happened for us, because he says, like, I feel like we've been invested for so long. I feel like we've had the roster capability to win the title. You look, we've had the Marco Michelettos, we've had the Charlie Dennises, we've had the Connor Antleys, we've had all these game-changing players, and it just feels like the end of the season hasn't quite gone our way, whether that's like key injuries or we just really don't have the depth. But he said that he felt like the camaraderie in the locker room was much different this year, but really just the buy-in to having this mean more than just like a title, having this mean something to a community, having this mean something to the people, to the ownership group. Just that buy-in was on a different level, and he feels like that was like a really big key to just their success down the stretch, especially. And then you look at, obviously, the tragic loss of Carter Payne, and you see all those guys wearing his jersey yesterday. You saw him with the warm-up tops. Every single one of them that I talked to at training on Saturday that I asked about, visibly, shaken up. And so you can tell that it's something that they're still dealing with. And in my mind, them lifting that trophy yesterday was like a physical representation that, this community is stronger than anything you could put us up against. And it was a really cool thing to see.
Well, and when you got to catch up with Keziah Sterling, he wasn't wearing the Tormenta jersey front to, crest on the front. He was wearing the Carter Payne version, where the Carter Payne name was right there, front and center for everybody to see. So everyone knew that Carter Payne was always
thinking about it.
Get right there. It's always going to be a part of the process. One other name that I wanted to bring up, you went down the road with Phelpsy, Pablo Jara. And Pablo Jara has been there for 5 years, and he has been part and parcel to the growth and the franchise as well. And TJ Bush was starting keeper, and Pablo had been taking a bit of a back seat this season, but TJ gets injured in the game. And we have, to an extremely lesser extent, but once again, kind of like what we saw in Los Angeles with MLS Cup, with Crepeau and McCarthy, you have the same thing happen with TJ Bush and Pablo Jara, where it gets to come full circle for Pablo, who came from Santiago, Chile. And he goes to Statesboro, Georgia. You want to talk culture shock. I'm sure Santiago to Statesboro is as culture shockish as you get. And Pablo gets to finish the match out. And I thought that spoke volumes as well to just being a part of the franchise from ground zero to getting a title last night.
Yeah, and he was it was really interesting because, we can't talk to everybody, and it was weird coming to Statesboro and like not having Pablo Jara's name on like the list of like players we necessarily like needed to interview for different content.
Yep.
And unprompted, 3 of the 5 guys that I talked to all brought up his name. I didn't ask them questions about him. Really what the angle was, and I'll go back to, Josh Dangler specifically. We talked a little bit about how many midseason transactions they had, just how many newcomers to the club they had. Josh Dangler's had an incredible season. A really hard thing to do for a center back to come into a new structure, a new unit, and win first team all league honors. Like that's pretty insane. And so I was asking him, as a newcomer, how have you embraced this culture so quickly? Because it's obviously showing in your form on the field. And he literally just said, Pablo. I was like, I'm not following. Like, yeah. What do you mean? And he was like, Pablo Jara has been my mentor, whether he knows it or not, of a guy who truly embraces everything that this club and this community represents. He said, I couldn't imagine someone coming in halfway and taking my job, knowing that the effort that I have put in. And that happened to Pablo, right? Like TJ Bush came in halfway through the season, took the starting job. It was a handoff more or less. And he said throughout the whole process, no matter what position Pablo has been in, he has never changed. His mindset's never changed, and his willingness to lead has never wavered. And he said that's the kind of mindset to me that just screams Tormenta FC. And he said it was funny. He's like, that's honestly. And he kind of like hesitated because I think he was like looking if Pablo was around. He was like, his energy is admirable. And that's the kind of guy that I look to every single day of what this culture means, what this community means, and how I'm supposed to represent it. And then he, of course, like whispered to me, he's like, I mean, I would never tell him that. Like, to his face. AKA, like, I didn't realize we were on the record. Like, do you mind if you don't tell him that? And I was just like, sorry, bud. Like, this is probably going on air.
God.
Yeah, I was like, you didn't say it. Didn't say it.
In the notebook.
It was awesome.
Halftime with Marion Crowder. Marion was on the sidelines last night for the USL League One championship game. South Georgia Tormenta with the USL double with the win over Chattanooga Red Wolves, and a very cool environment. First time ever that you got to have this kind of a game of this kind of magnitude at Tormenta Stadium, and seeing how everything is growing in and around the stadium in Statesboro. Obviously with COVID 2 years behind, but it's great to see the visions. I mean, you got to see the mock-ups as to what the anticipated end result is. What do you think?
It's going to be incredible. It really is, like you're saying, it's going to be the Green Bay of USL League One. Because I mean, it's going to be like, just to put it into perspective for the people listening. So Chattanooga's stadium, we mentioned these are the only 2 clubs at the moment with soccer-specific stadiums. And Chattanooga's stadium, their planned finished seating capacity is 5,500, which is a large amount of people. Darin van Tassell is planning to have this thing at an potential expandable capacity of 14,000 people. Like, that's nuts. It's going to be crazy. I mean, I don't know if anybody watched the game last night that are listening to this morning, but the mounds of dirt, like, I truly wish that I could, everyone's just like, oh no, it's a mound of dirt. Like, I wish I could explain to you how large these mounds of dirt are. We were joking. We were like, wow, they've really brought the Statesboro version of the Red Rocks amphitheater to life here. Because it literally looks like they're trying to make like a man-made mountain. It's crazy.
20 feet tall is what it looked like, at least, as we're standing ground level on the pitch, and we're looking, if you were watching the match last night, it would be off to camera right, all the way over to the right-hand side, which is the south end zone. That's where most of the excavation has happened, and you have that wall of red clay and dirt and everything that has been slid over to where you could have this 3,000-seat facility ready for the last handful of matches here in this season. And it's fun to see something grow from the ground up. And it goes back to, once again, our exposure to the league from absolute beginnings and your time in Greenville and seeing what the Triumph have been able to do. The Triumph are chasing after their own soccer-specific stadium, live, work, play environment right now. They're at Legacy Early, and they're incredibly happy with what they're getting at Legacy Early, and the fan base there is amazing. But, you see the gravitation toward those full-purpose live, work, play environments. But it's been fun to see the progression get to where it is when it comes to this league.
No, I agree. And I think to that note, I think it's smart. I really do think that approach, the live, work, play approach to what you're building is a smart one, because I do think that you have to be realistic. Like, we are soccer in the South, soccer across America, it's growing tremendously. Don't get me wrong. Like, it is the hottest sport right now when you look at growth in every department, ticket sales, sponsorship money, TV deals. It's incredible. But you do have competing factors, right? Like, it just is what it is. Like, in the South especially, you are going to have the diehard football fans, diehard NFL fans. You're going to come up against kid priorities at that point. Like, right now you've got rec soccer that I think just finished across a couple of states. You've got football really starting to heat up, right, in the playoff environment. And then you've got, obviously, club soccer and how you travel. So there's so many things that are competing for our attention, and so many ways as a fan I could choose to spend my time and spend my dollars. And so having just that extra layer of like, well, not only did I get to go to a soccer game, but I also get to shop, and I get to eat at that place that I like that's right down the corner. So I think it's an incredibly smart business approach to building a soccer-specific stadium. Give me any more reasons you can give me as a fan to come. Love it.
What do you think? I mean, what's it been like for you to see the owners in USL League One? Like I said, you've known the Irwins, and you know what they are like when it comes to wanting to build Greenville, to see the Van Tassells, to see the Martinos and what they're doing with Chattanooga to build things in their way. What's it been like for you to see all of these dedicated owners who get what League One wants to be?
Yeah, I think every owner is going to think certain things are more important than the others, right? Like, I can speak specifically to Greenville, and half of the reason I feel like I'm doing what I'm doing now is because they really feel that the media investment is important, right? Cultivating relationships with the media, getting content out. They're a very content-driven team. Doug is a genius from a branding perspective as far as like merchandise. How do we make extra things available? How do we make limited purchases where we really get people's attention? And then you have Darin van Tassell down here, who he is honestly, in my mind, such a developer, right? You look at everything that he owns, and it's almost like everything he touches turns to gold. And you talk about every little pit of this community. I'm like, I feel like you have mentioned 3 different places now, and you're all like, oh yeah, Darin owns this one too. And so it's just a different, it's interesting to see their different approaches to how they think they could best make the club grow. And I think it just goes to show that there's no one right way. Like, investing in media or investing in development or investing in an incredible front office staff, like whatever it may be, I don't think that there's any one right way that you could find success. But the biggest thing is just understanding what your market comes to. Like for Greenville, for example, they love merchandise. Doug understood that. He caters to that need. And so I think that's the biggest thing that I've seen owners do, is just really try so hard to understand the market that they're in, and then how can we take what we know has worked across the board and then really make it unique and personable to what our community is invested in.
And that goes to soccer in the Southeast, because I mean, even if you just look at USL League One, and fix me if I miss somebody here, it's Statesboro, Chattanooga, Greenville. Mm-hmm. It is Charlotte. It is Cary with North Carolina FC. Mm-hmm. It is Richmond, and then you're adding Lexington, and you're adding Knoxville to this process.
Yep.
So I mean, if you didn't have enough of a reason just to be a casual fan, the Southeastern Conference rivalries get to work their way in. You've got the Sun Belt versus the SEC when it comes to Saturdays in college football, and I think that it's something that's kind of shown itself here in USL League One and in the championship and all the other divisions that in the Southeast, if you take that Southeast Conference or just Southeastern football Saturday mentality and apply it to Southeastern football, FUTBOL, with the inclusion and all of those different things, you're seeing this crossover of those fans, and you're getting them to gravitate toward watching soccer when all they might have just known is college football.
I agree, and I think one thing that I will say has been across the board for a lot of the owners that I've spoken to is the fan experience. One thing that I think is really cool about lower division, men's professional soccer, and that's what USL League One is that you are getting such a high-end product in the game, right? Like last night, that was one of the most fast-tempoed games played I have ever seen. I mean, the quality of that game was second to none. That was an incredibly played game. So you're getting an elite product on the field, but you're getting it in this little bit more of a casual environment. We're not asking for you to be some diehard fan. We're not asking you to come spend hundreds of dollars. We're just asking if you would like to come and enjoy the atmosphere, enjoy the experience. You're getting to see an elite product. Most people don't even know they're seeing, such a good product, but we're not asking for much. And so I feel like a lot of owners have taken kind of like that mentality of just like, let's just create this easygoing, super fun, enjoyable experience where they leave that game and they say, I really didn't know what I was walking into, but I'd definitely be back. That's how you build the casual fan into potentially somebody in a supporter group. That's how it happens.
You mentioned not spending a lot of money.
How much money did you spend, John?
this particular piece of plastic was smoking after I went and did Christmas.
I heard from the league guys here that the League One merch, like the final merch, did incredibly well.
No, it was gone.
Incredibly well. So I assume that they're going to attribute that to you.
Yeah, it's going to be a big percentage.
10% was spent by John.
Yeah, and we'll sit there and give it as Festivus gifts and things like that. Yeah. We've gone 27 minutes. We barely talked about the game in and of itself.
Yeah.
And you had, the first 20 minutes, get to the quarter pole, and it was all Tormenta. I mean, most of the action was off to your right and everything. The field had tilted, and your Aviles is having to stand on his head and make sure that nothing was going on. Then you get a penalty. Kaz Sterling knocks it home. It's 1-0. Then you get that moment right before the half, and you could just kind of sense the building. It's like all that momentum was there, and then the building just evened out after it was 1-1 late first half.
Yeah. It was weird. And from like a sideline perspective, so around the 40th minute, we're like relaying to the comms people for each team, because we need a player going out of half and we need a player interview coming into half. Mm-hmm. And so we have, this plan, obviously, that we're going to talk to just the captain of the Chattanooga Red Wolves, Carrera, because they hadn't scored yet. And then they have this late half equalizer. We're like, oh my God, who was at the score? We need him. It was a moment of chaos, but I remember interviewing Keziah. You could tell at half it was a little bit of just I know we still have this, but I'm really frustrated that they even, that we didn't keep a clean sheet, because they had all of the momentum. You mentioned it. I feel like Chattanooga did well to weather that early 20-minute storm, to be quite honest with you. I thought they could have easily been up 2-0 in the first 20. Great defensive effort from Chattanooga. The game expanded a little bit from probably the 20 to 35 minute mark, a little bit more even paced, a little bit slower, and then just chaos, honestly, at the end of the first half. But you heard Keziah in that halftime interview. He said nothing changes. We have to be better on set pieces. But from a general game plan, we are the better team right now. We are on the forefront, and I totally agree with him. I don't think Chattanooga ended up playing their best 90 minutes of the season. I talked to Correa after that, and he said, it's the better team won tonight. Obviously, in South Georgia, Tormenta, they had the better game, but I don't feel like we, as Chattanooga, I don't feel like we really showed up. So that was an interesting perspective to hear from him for sure. But let me tell you, the fact that second goal, Jamil Roberts' goal, wasn't on a top 10 highlight, like crazy. That was a missile.
It was. And by the way, would you like to put on your sideline reporter hat for
Sure.
one more question?
Sure.
Because guys, now,
oh, look at him with the shirt. Look at.
Some people go to sleep after championships. Some people don't have enough time to sleep. It's overrated. Anyway, what a night.
Darin van Tassell with the hot tag joining quickly. I mean, Marion. All right, so Marion, put on your sideline reporter hat one more time. If you had a question for Darin van Tassell the morning after, what is it?
Oh,
all
wow.
ears, Marion. All ears. And by the way, she crushed it last night, John.
Oh, I know she did.
It was a big event.
Absolutely.
So, Darin, can I have at my producer? Can I have one question or two?
Yeah, go for it. It's all you.
Okay, Darin. So earlier, but before you hopped on, we were just talking about the tremendous growth that USL League One has seen, and we were saying that Tormenta is representative so much about what USL wants to do. From the fact you have an academy program, you have a 2 program, you have a women's league. You are literally the first team ever with a double championship. And in 2019, would we have ever thought that was going to be a possibility for clubs to even have that kind of honor, to have a women's champion and a men's champion? You have done it. And as the 3 seed, nonetheless, like what is going through your mind right now?
Well, it takes a village, and we can just hit ... after that. In our league, I don't think there's much difference between a 3 seed, 1 seed, and an 8th seed. And but someone has to end up with those numbers in the playoffs. What a moment. Thanks for mentioning the double. I'm not certain, as much as Tormenta wants to make that happen again, that's going to be such a rarity in the history of our sport in this country for 2 championships to happen at the same time. Quite frankly, I thought the story last night, other than Pablo Jara's Hollywood moment,
we talked about it.
was the fans, was the crowd. Forget how many the numbers were. That place was hopping. It was
over 3,065, I think, was the announced number.
And it was such an intimate group. It was loud. We get you close, and I think stadiums our size, you can do much more of that. Players have not stopped smiling. I left them about 4:30 because we needed to leave and make sure I got them to bed. But there's a lot to do, and it was just joyful. Sports happening, and it brings us joy, and our joy is bigger than us. That's the best part. And honestly, I really do hope this is a real sign, because yes, Tormenta won a title and we beat the Red Wolves, but they also have that same infrastructure you just mentioned. Yeah. And kudos to them for having it. I hope it was a wonderful night for our league.
Yeah. John, this is my last one. I want to give you a moment, because I feel like your players have just truly not gotten enough love. I think they've gotten a good bit of love on the field. I mean, to be honest, tremendous performance from them last night from a player perspective, but just as people. And, this was one thing I talked to you about after the game. The guys that you have in this group, from head coach to front office to every single player that I got a chance to speak with, such a welcoming energy about them. So I want to give you a second to just give some love to that group of guys who got to lift the trophy last night.
I love that you're bringing up that point. I think that's the silent point we know internally. These are fine folks. You just want to be around them all the day. Nitra probably gets most of the credit as owner for that. You guys let me come on the show and speak, but it's a genuine moment. It happens. The players are that kind to each other, quite frankly. And quite frankly, men don't often get the sort of the joy and the love that they should show when they're kind, whether they're trialists that come in, whether they're new guys that are coming in, whether it's our academy guys showing up, Kazai Sterling is probably our best player with 9 and 8-year-olds, just being kind and nice to him. Pablo was taking penalty shots with kids on the goal last night. I mean, these are just fun moments. Maybe they're unique to our league. I don't know. I don't know how else to do it other than having superb people, but you can't grow a club in our size if you don't have the community to be a part of us. And it's going to take that kind of genuine folks. Listen, last night you could see it winning something. Listen, that's not a hard time to show joy, is it?
No.
But it's so genuine. It's so real. What you experience is exactly who they are.
Yeah.
At Marion CC _ on the Twitters from the sidelines last night, heading back to the real world. Marion, you understand that you have a golden ticket here at SDH. So whenever you want to crash,
you call me. You have my number. You know where to find me.
Wait a second. There's a real world. I need to understand how to get there.
You're in it, brother.
I'm faking it till I make it, Darin. I'll just say that. We'll leave it there. Guys, it was seriously a pleasure, Darin. I'm so glad I got to see you again. John, thanks as always. Seriously, call me anytime. You know where to find me.
Marion Crowder sidelines last night on ESPN2 for the League One title game. And so Marion is checking out. Darin van Tassell is in the office. All right, so let's go back. And when I first saw you, when I wandered into Tormenta Stadium last night, you had the ear-to-ear grin. And you were, I'm trying to figure out the emotions, and I'm sure that there were a lot of them heading into the match last night, because it's like there was that nervous, positive energy heading into the match last night. It's probably the best way that I could describe it.
Well, I think at the moment we were a little bit still taken back by how many people were coming into the stadium. The gates didn't open until 6. That line was about 150 yards out there, and it just never stopped, and it kept coming. By the way, what a great showing for the Red Wolves fans.
No doubt.
Big turnout for them. And John, the players for the Red Wolves, first class after the game. So were their fans. Just absolutely first class. So it's a big shout out to their own organization and all the great things that Sean's doing there and that ownership group. There was a calmness, I think, that we all felt. There's excitement in there when that many people show up and that many TV cameras around, but there was a real calmness in the air, and we were eager to start and get it going. We felt prepared. That never means that's going to lead to an outcome.
True.
It was absolutely a 50-50 kind of game. It was a great game to watch. People were watching soccer in League One for the first time. I think they got a real treat. ESPN, I think, did a nice job with the camera work and all the broadcasters. But what a first time to tune in. I can tell you last night, there were a lot of folks in Statesboro, a lot of Statesboro elite that were seeing Tormenta for the first time. So our timing worked out great.
So it's 1-0, and, the first 20, 25 minutes, Marion and I talked about it before you came on. Getting to the quarter pole, the field was tilted, and Tormenta was on the front foot like they were when these two teams met last week of the regular season, except that the chances went in the back of the net last week of the regular season, as opposed to still being goalless. Kaz gets the PK to make it 1-0. Then there's the moment right before the half where everything was honors even heading into the second 45. What were you thinking heading into the break with everything even at 1?
Well, we had been pretty front-footed. I thought we got a tough foul call, to tell you the truth, but what a goal Chattanooga had.
Mm-hmm.
When we get the pin, I think it was really because we should have gotten one about 20 minutes earlier, and the two equated to one together.
Yep.
But the guys came out. I thought we had a good portion of the things, but it really felt like it was headed to overtime.
Yeah.
At that stage, both teams I thought were playing quite well. I know any team that loses thinks they don't have their best game, but we hope that we were a part of teams not having their best game. Subs clearly made a big role. Pablo comes on in goal to take over for TJ, and the crowd starts chanting. Listen, it was deafening at that time. And I know Hollywood scripts write themselves like this when those things happen, but we tend to say, that's Hollywood. But that is exactly what happened last night. Jamil scores after being on the field for 3 minutes, and what a banger!
Yeah,
that he takes. No one was gonna, stop that. So, there was a level of excitement that when it runs through any sports person's body that you can't get enough of.
Mm-hmm. So Jamil gets it in the back of the net, 2-1. Those final 8-9 minutes or so. Did you have any fingernails left, or are you in a position to bite your nails? Did you find fingernail clippers? There you go. Yeah, I was wondering, how much of it were you able to watch?
Oh, I watch. Okay. I find my spot. Nitra and I get there. I need to watch the game. Now, there were moments that I missed. The final 5 minutes or so, I was right there on the edge with the rest of the guys that weren't rostered as we were getting ready, and so we could watch it there. Other than some of that being a blur, I'd like to go back and watch some of those details that we might have missed. But listen, down the stretch, I thought we were pretty clinical in keeping them away from something super dangerous. And Pablo falls on the ball a couple of times. The whistle to me, actually, when it happened, I knew what had just happened. I knew it was the end of the game, but I think it took about 2 seconds for the, oh my gosh, that's what just happened.
Yeah.
And then here we go.
Well, and we were talking about it when Marion was on, that you had the full representation of everything that was there that is Tormenta. It was some of the women's team had come down. They had come back to watch the League One team in their title. Yeah. You had academy there. You had all the youth that was there. It was one of those shared moments that I thought was the personification of what you and Nitra and everyone there in Tormenta have built to get to this point where it was that shared experience. It wasn't just the League One title game. Everyone was enjoying the process.
Yeah, thanks for saying that. We were top to bottom on the whole representation. I think the 11 of the women that won a star this summer made sure that they were in attendance. There's a couple of just anecdotal things that are worth knowing. There were some guys that I followed on Twitter a little bit, and they become Tormenta followers and whatnot. They're Argentinian, and quite frankly, I just assumed they're in the U.S., except they boarded planes and flew from Argentina to be at the game last night.
Yep.
A lot of alumni flew in. Guys that are on different teams flew in and made sure that they were here. It was so important to many of us. Lots of text messages after the game, John.
Yes, there were. I have the photo to prove it.
And so, listen, that's the fun stuff that happens when championships occur. That script does play itself out. Yeah. For us, being the first time, it probably feels like it plays itself out a bit differently, but sports do happen, and they happened in the best of ways last night.
Two guys I want to mention, and we already kind of talked about one of them, Phelpsy and Pablo Jara, who have been a part of this process pretty much since as close to day one as humanly possible. And catching up with Pablo, I mean, after the match, we go to Edwin Pintor, director, major domo of communications.
That's right.
And we sit there and it's like, okay, who do you want to talk to? And so obviously we wanted to talk to Keziah Sterling. That was easy. Ian wanders over and puts me in a triangle choke after the interview was over. Then after that, I wanted to catch up with a couple of folks. And one was obviously Jamil. And the other one that I specifically requested was Pablo. Because I wanted his perspective on someone who has been a Tormenta lifer about going from day one to that night. Yeah. And the fact that he got to share that moment with his family who flew up from Chile. You mentioned Argentina and USL Argentina. The fact that his family came up from Chile to see Statesboro, because, conversations and anecdotal stuff can only go so far. Mom, I'm going to go play professional soccer in Statesboro, Georgia.
Yeah.
But for them to finally get to see their son in that Hollywood moment, come in for TJ and finish the match out, for everything that he's invested, for everything Phelpsy's invested, for them to get that moment, I thought was another bow that you could add to that gift.
Hollywood writes those scripts, and we have fun with them. We're like, yeah, but that doesn't really occur. The fans were chanting his name, and his parents got to hear it.
Yeah.
That's really we won. The score was also great because we get T-shirts that come with winning.
Yes, you do.
Way. But we had won. We won that game before it started, in terms of impact and in terms of growing the sport in our league. The fact that the Hollywood gods permitted us to also finish it up with that kind of moment.
Yeah.
Made it even better. The moment that really caught me, though, and you probably saw it, you're savvy, was when Pablo loses his starting role to TJ, who's been unbelievable for us down the stretch. We get super hot.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, when Pablo comes out of the lineup, a whole bunch of other players started playing differently because Coach Eda and Cameron said, we're going to try changing goal. They got going also. And that's no small moment. But Gabriel Cabral's been our captain since that time, and he runs over and puts the captain's armband on him.
Yep.
We know what a moment that is amongst soccer players, and just how much that matters. In the pregame, we talked about how important it would be if we won and if Pablo Jara can lift our trophy. Now, in the pregame, Pablo already knew he wasn't starting tonight.
Yeah.
Although it's quite tenuous every week because it goes about who's having a good week at training.
Okay.
Our fans got to see all that, and we got to experience. And Nature and I are owners, and Jeff Spencer and Elena, his wife. We had a lot of the ownership group in town. They all got to see that. Boy, those mental photos aren't going to go away soon.
No, they shouldn't. So how late a night was it? You said 4:30?
Well, 4:30 is when we kind of broke the party up, but I don't think we went to sleep a lot. I do know that Pablo somehow managed a way to go to sleep, because I do have a picture that he posted.
There it is.
He took the trophy home, and he's got the medal and the trophy. And if you ever wonder if this doesn't matter to grown men, it matters to grown men.
Oh, that's fantastic. On Darin van Tassell's phone is a picture of a napping Pablo Jara as he continues to get text messages and sleeping with the USL League One trophy. Is this going to be a Stanley Cup kind of a thing where everybody gets a day with it and gets to do with it whatever they wish?
We're making this stuff up as we go. I love that idea. That's what it has to do. It's got rounds to make. And
I mean, that's some great stuff there. When you look back at all of this, this day, meaning yesterday, as we're talking on Sunday, to get to this point, now that you have to find traditional medicinals throat coat tea, look back to day one, like day one. Look back to day one for me, for the birth of Tormenta. And you go from day one to here. Has it sunk in that you've gone from, that you and Nitra have gone from co-owner, co-president, general manager, hoarder of the cell phones, wandering into a community room there at the clubhouse, to double champion in USL, first time ever in American, in this hemisphere, even in this hemisphere soccer history, where a franchise has won both a women's title and a men's title. From day one, have you had the chance to sit there and think of the context of from day one to yesterday and today, that you're wearing a T-shirt for the second time this summer?
I'm rubbing the cold chills out of my body just so I can give you an answer. That's not possible to sink in. It's just not possible for what you just said to sink in for any of us. I'm not naive enough to think that may never happen in North America again.
But you're the first.
But we got to do both of our firsts at the same time. It's sensational. How else do we say it? When this happens to teams, communities, states, regions, the impact lasts for a while, and things that you couldn't do previously get to happen now. The fact that this is also happening while our stadiums continues to build and is just an absolute gift.
The red rocks of USL League One soccer.
Yes, well said. Well said. But listen, I do hope. How do we say this that it's not overanalyze it? This was a big moment for where soccer has come in the United States. The fact that it happened in Tormenta in Statesboro is wonderful.
Yeah.
But look at the shoulders this thing is come upon. There were people playing in the 70s and 80s pushing our game when very little was happening. It was certainly never on TV.
Yeah.
And now we get to talk about it. And if pro soccer gets to show up in Statesboro, Georgia, and we have a club here that can have that kind of success, it'll happen. Excuse me, that's the bad throat happening there.
That's what
it can happen over and over again. And in League One, we're filled with clubs that it could happen to every year.
All right, you're fading, so I'm going to go one more question. When it comes to all of this, and I mean this in the holistic sense. The one thing that I mentioned to you last night, and I talked to Marion about it this morning, is that every league needs a Green Bay. And what I mean by that is that you've got that one franchise in the market that's not the biggest. That is going to sit there and be successful outside of the purview of the major market. You know, if you sit there and you look at, like I said, you look at the National Football League, it's the Green Bay Packers. You look at the NBA, they're in markets where, the Milwaukee Bucks, we'll stick with the state of Wisconsin. Yeah. Milwaukee isn't your largest media market in the world, but when you get players like Giannis who can be there to get you to a championship, you're in a top 40 media market, but you're not the largest media market in the National Basketball Association. I think that every league, if it's managed well, has that Green Bay situation where the folks that are in that market understand who they are, they understand what they're building, and they're going to do it their way and be successful. I would posit that Tormenta is positioning itself to be the Green Bay of American soccer, the smallest market that exists, and within months, not a calendar year, but months, you have gone from winning a USLW title, first time ever, to winning the USL League One championship. I don't think it's that far of a stretch to sit there and posit that a Green Bay equivalence exists here with what you and everyone are building here with Tormenta.
I'm going to just clip your part and make sure all of our future players, season ticket holders, and sponsors get to hear that.
Okay. Hey,
fantastic.
Let me know.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, you need to focus on drinking hot things and not talking probably for the next 3 days.
Sleep. So, I sleep probably should occur.
That too. So, Darin, my friend, congratulations for a successful League One season. Everyone in League One for a successful League One season. The fact that you got to, as a part of the growth of this franchise, hoist the trophy and do it with Carter Payne, I think is also just as important with everything that you guys have accomplished this year. Congratulations. Save your voice. I will see you soon, my friend.
Thank you, John. What a night. What a night. Cheers.
Darin van Tassell wearing the T-shirt. He has the T-shirt. Now, of course, we have to figure out when those are going on sale for those of us who are trying to shop for Festivus gifts. Darin van Tassell, co-owner and president, South Georgia Tormenta. Champions, USL League One, fantastic weekend here in the borough. And that is going to do it for another round of SDH. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll talk more about Major League Soccer. We'll talk about all these other things that are going on. We'll talk about everything in the world of soccer. Thanks for hanging out with us for a remote from remote places. Marion Crowder, who was in Savannah area as part of her duties as she is heading back to the real world and heading back home. Thanks to her. Thanks to all of you for hanging out with us as well. So for everybody here in Statesboro and for SDH, we'll be back at it tomorrow. For Jarrett, for Jason, for Nick, I'm just John. Play it safe, everybody. We'll be back at it tomorrow. And since it is the end of the show, that means once I find it, I get to do this. We'll see you tomorrow.